Saw is pretty gross. I mean, it's probably best to not watch after eating. Released in 2004, the premise is a simple yet effective one. Two guys wake up to find themselves chained up in a strange bathroom, where it turns out that they are there at the whim of a serial killer known as Jigsaw, where his victims must survive deadly games and traps, which usually have gruesome consequences. And thus a modern horror movie franchise and mythology was born, in which fans all around the world have delighted in seeing the brutal exploits of Jigsaw. So today we are going to explore 10 things that you didn't know about Saw. So buckle up as things get a little gruesome as we check it out. Number 10. Saw was meant to be a straight-to-video release. The terrifying world of Saw was unleashed into movie theaters on Halloween 2004, and boy was this a movie that went a long way, as it made $18 million on its first week alone, making Saw hugely profitable, considering its budget was just $1 million. Now, if you can believe it, Saw wasn't meant to be released in theaters at all. This small-scale horror movie was intended to be a straight-to-video release, hence its micro-budget. But Lionsgate, who were distributing the movie, decided to release Saw theatrically as a Halloween release due to its positive screenings at the Sundance Film Festival. And so, to everyone's surprise and delight, it was a massive success. Although the movie got mixed responses from critics who didn't know how to respond to this brutal horror movie, it was fully embraced by audiences who saw it as an instant grisly classic and the dawn of a new type of horror movie, where all up, Saw would go on to make nearly $104 million in the box office, which is insane, once again giving its $1 million budget. And this success instantly guaranteed a sequel. But hang on, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. But where did this unlikely phenomenon that no one saw coming start? What was its origins? Number 9. It all started with a migraine. Saw was the creation of Australian filmmakers James Wan and Leigh Whannell. After finishing film school, the two former students wanted to collaborate on a movie together, with Wan directing and Whannell writing. At this time, Wan was frequently suffering with migraines and was convinced that he had a brain tumour, where he booked in to have a scan of his brain. And while nervously waiting in the waiting room, it's here that he began thinking about what would he do if he was told that he only had a limited amount of time left to live. And thus, this thought led to the creation of Jigsaw. Now thankfully Wan didn't die and was given the all clear, but instead a modern movie boogeyman was born. Number 8. The title came from a diary entry. So Wan's original bare basic idea for the script, in knowing that he would be working with a very small budget, was two guys chained opposite sides of a bathroom with no idea how they got there, where there is a dead body in the room with them, where, plot twist, the body isn't dead and thus is the cause of them being there. Wan rung up Whannell to tell him of this simple yet effective idea that he had, and after the phone call, Whannell was just pondering the story that Wan had just told him, and without really thinking about it, he opened up his diary and wrote the words Saw. But not only that, he wrote it in a red blood dripping font, and so the unique title of Saw was created. Whannell put this down to one of those moments where, quote, some things just really are meant to be. So did the title Saw come from the killer's name, Jigsaw? Or is it because the story featured a saw? Or was it both? Either way, Saw. Number 7. Saw alternatives. James Wan and Leigh Whannell were inspired to making a low-budget independent horror movie as they felt it could be done after watching the Blair Witch Project. But before Wan and Whannell went forward with their Saw idea, there were other potential ideas that they toyed with making a movie about. One of those movie ideas was quite surreal, as it was about astral projection, in which a man can travel out of his body via sheer consciousness. Another idea would have focused on two characters stuck in an elevator, and the other idea was about a man who keeps waking up every morning to find mysterious scratches all over his body. So he sets up a camera to try and discover what is happening to him while he sleeps. And yes, as the website Uproxx puts it, this is kind of like an early precursor to Paranormal Activity. Regardless, the two filmmakers chose the idea about the deranged serial killer and his deadly games. Number 6. Short film. Yet before the Saw movie that we got, the one we all know and love and possibly throw up to, there was actually a short film that was made first, which was also called Saw, and it had a duration of just 10 minutes. Okay, so here's what happened. Juan and Juanel were trying to get the film off the ground in Australia with no luck, where they were told to try Los Angeles instead, but they still weren't having any luck. So they shot the short film to give producers an insight into what the movie would be like. Filmed in Australia, aesthetically the short film has the same look and feel of the movie, and it must have worked as some independent producers were interested, and the company Twisted Pictures was created, which is a subdivision of Evolution Entertainment, and so now Saw was officially in production. Number 5. The short film worked with enticing the cast. Saw sees a lot of big names turning up, who I feel at that time were in a more quieter stage of their careers, particularly Carrie Elwes and Shawnee Smith, who were big names in the 80s, but maybe weren't really in demand at that stage, with Saw injecting more buzz into their careers. Carrie Elwes saw the short film and instantly wanted to star in the movie. He even read the script in one sitting. Shawnee Smith was recommended by Juan, as he had a crush on her ever since his teenage years, but she actually turned the part down, finding it too horrific. However, she changed her mind when she saw the short film. The legendary Danny Glover was cast as Detective David Tapp, just simply because he felt there was something about the character that attracted him to it. So clearly he's not too old for this shit. Co-creator and Saw writer Lee Wanell was cast as Adam, as he had also previously starred in the short film. But what about the big guy himself? What about Jigsaw? Number 4. Original choice to play Jigsaw. According to Wikipedia, actor Mike Butters was originally considered for Jigsaw. Butters is probably best known in the nerd fandom community for starring in the Angry Video Game Nerd episode of the Pepsi Man video game, on the account that he actually starred in the Pepsi Man game. And we never did discover what Pepsi for TV game means. Butters turned the part of Jigsaw down, as he didn't find it exciting enough, so he was cast as Paul instead. Now, Tobin Bell was something of a background character actor, an actor who turns up every now and then in minor roles, usually playing unflattering, pretty sinister characters. He was offered to play Jigsaw and accepted it just merely because he found the movie's location to be fascinating, that being two guys locked up in a room. That, and he really wanted to work with Danny Glover, as you do. Number 3. Saw was shot in an insanely short time. Due to the movie's tiny budget, most of Saw was filmed at a cheap warehouse located in Los Angeles. Saw was also filmed within a staggering 18 days time frame, so considering time and money was tight, there was literally no time for rehearsals. The production couldn't even afford a stuntman, forcing Lee Wanell himself to perform many of the movie's stunts. Danny Glover alone completed his scenes in just 2 days. When it came to filming some reshoots, some of the actors were no longer available, so Lee Wanell had to stand in for some of the actors, including Shawnee Smith. When it came to showing gore and bloody gizzards, pig guts were used. If anything, the movie is a testament to Juan and Wanell's hard work and being able to create a visually impactful movie with pretty much no budget and very few resources. Sometimes if you're onto something and you just know within yourself that it will work and be successful, you just have to go against all odds and get it done and out there by any and all resources that you have access to. Number 2. The creation of Billy. It's here we come to the Jigsaw puppet, Billy, without a doubt the iconic face of the franchise, as well as a pop cultural icon in its own right, and an eerie prop that just makes Saw just that bit more creepier and unnerving. James Wan himself worked on the creation of the puppet, even stitching him up himself. And once again, considering the movie's low budget, Billy was literally made up of scraps laying around the place, including paper mache and clay. His eyes were made of ping pong balls, and his insides were paper towels, and he was pushed along with a fishing line. So an iconic horror mascot was literally put together in a cut and paste fashion, by bits and pieces that Wan managed to get his hands on. Number 1. Saw was originally given a higher rating. When being assessed by the MPAA, Saw was originally given an NC-17 rating, which is a rating that no studio wants as it's the most restrictive. So naturally, in order to get Saw back down to the desired R rating, certain scenes of extreme violence had to be trimmed down or cut out. Interestingly, going back to uproxx.com, the violence aside, another issue the MPAA had, oddly, was the movie's use of fluorescent lights and its uneven sound quality, which is, well, let's just say an interesting reason to give a movie a higher rating classification. There was still a little bit of controversy after the movie's release, which resulted in Cary Elwes filing a lawsuit, claiming that he was promised a 1% profit of the producer's profits, which he did not receive. But the case was settled outside court, and it obviously didn't sour Elwes' relationship with the franchise too much, as he would return for Saw 3D. Regardless, Saw is now considered a modern horror classic, and introduced the birth of a new kind of horror movie, the torture genre. And the Saw movies have been riding high from strength to strength ever since that first movie, when two young Australian filmmakers had a vision, and worked hard and went above and beyond to bring this vision to life, much to the delight of horror movie fans. So, I saw Saw, and I said, yuck, that's pretty gross and intense. Then I saw some of the sequels, and I thought they were even grosser and even more intense. So they are definitely the kind of movies that people like me probably need a sick bag to watch in order to get through them. Anyway, I'm Minty, and I guess that technically Saw is actually an Australian creation. Who'd have thought it? See ya!